So the companies have plausible deniability when it comes to what caused the damage in somebody's body, especially because there's so many harmful products. So the more harmful products there are in society, the more that any given corporation has plausible deniability when it comes to people taking legal action and what have you. Society is very much under the control of people who wish to attack your mind, body, and soul. You know, big corporations are waging war on us, and you have groups such as the Trilateral Commission, the Roundtable Group. They talk about how to protect themselves better, how to make their lobby groups more effective, and how to make you more of a willing participant in your own financial, social, and political demise. It's very sad, you know. And when we want to blame philosophies, it goes back to the spiritual bottom feeders. These are the philosophies, you know, a kind of criminality, selfish criminal philosophy, Satanism, LGBT philosophy, feminist philosophies, atheist and racist philosophies, you know, eugenics and what have you. These are the philosophies which allow them to do what they do. Now, some of these people, you know, parade around as if they're Christians or Muslims or Jews, but really their philosophy is one of the ones I just named, spiritual philosophies. Those are the philosophies of the New World Order. It's always sad to me when I see that people do not understand the significance of the feminist perspective being a very prevalent perspective, how the Luciferian doctrine is taught in almost every major college's psychology classes. The college I went to, it wasn't taught, but you know, from what I hear from my friends and my family, that they're taught about the Luciferian doctrine in their psychology classes. And you know, we see how Pythagoras influenced Plato, and Plato talked about state-sponsored or state-controlled reproduction, you know, state control over your reproduction. It's rather repugnant and deplorable to think that you would have a government, you know, in control of your reproduction. Even if the government was made up of the most righteous man, which we all know has never been the case, especially not in this country, that is completely immoral, unfair, and wrong. I talk about in past videos how when you go against the secret societies that control a country, or you don't get along with the government, you are at odds with the government and that country. Especially in America, where people wave flags and they consider being a foolish, naive, gullible sheep their patriotic duty. So what does this mean for Big Pharma and their inordinate control over the Congress and the legislators, policymakers? Well, it means that they basically are your masters. They tell you how to behave. They drug you when you don't behave. And they run psychological operations on political dissidents. Anyone who doesn't believe that, you know, shouldn't be allowed to vote. Let's face it, you know, this country has a long history of running psychological operations on political dissidents. You know, for people, some people actually think that COINTELPRO and MKUltra are conspiracy theories. Some people don't think that the CIA is corrupt. Some people think that the FBI could do no wrong, and even though the Department of Homeland Security was started by Bush, that it is absolutely morally correct and absolutely full of fidelity and integrity. These people do not live by their own mottos. These people live by a model of obedience, blind obedience. Don't ask, don't tell. These organizations are basically the same as criminal organizations. I've studied criminal organizations and intelligence agencies, law enforcement, you know, government organizations for a long time, and they're pretty much identical. As Sam Giancana said, the head of the Chicago outfit, which pretty much took over after Al Capone was locked up for tax evasion, he said the CIA and the mafia are two sides of the same coin. You know, I've discussed the significance of this and the symbolism from the banking and how the Masons brag about they control our legal tender, our fiat currency, by putting their symbols on the dollar bill, and how the dead presidents we have on our money we're also in secret societies, and how that mainstream history never covers the other side of these people's lives. Abraham Lincoln wasn't just someone who officially abolished slavery, which he did to strike at the South and to weaken their economics in order to win the war and to also create more strife and chaos, not because he necessarily cared about slaves, even though it was true he was friends with Frederick Douglass, and he had people in his family, I believe his father, who wanted to marry a mixed black woman for a second marriage, something along those lines. I could be mistaken about that, but he had some personal reasons for wanting to end it as well, but that wasn't the main reason he did it. It was an afterthought at best. So, a lot of these people, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and so on, that we have on the dollar bills and on our currency and coins and whatnot, these people were in secret societies. Everything about the symbolism on our money screams secret society. They control our financial system, our economic system. And so they financed, and they were the ones with enough money to start pharmaceutical companies and with the connections to be able to do it in the first place. Major pharmaceutical companies, especially as they relate to mental health. And there's people who really just do not get that. They think that secret societies are harmless groups. They have lodges. Think about it. In order for you to be a nonprofit organization, for example, for your church to be a nonprofit and for you to be exempt from a certain amount of taxes, you have to prove that it's a religious institution and so on and so forth, right? Well, how does a secret society do that? So either they have friends in high places, or they're paying taxes on their Masonic lodges, logically. And if they're paying taxes, look at these expensive buildings they have downtown New York and Los Angeles and in London and so on. It screams high-powered. So there are people who believe that a bunch of rich people get together in a secret group and there is no plotting going on. They get together in private meetings. They fly from all over the world and go to, New Zealand, and, they meet in Bilderberg and so on and so forth. And in the Trilateral Commission, the Roundtable Group, and there's no, conspiracy going on. There's no collaboration. They're not in cahoots. They're not colluding to do anything. They're just meeting to say hi and have some tea, and, especially when these companies are supposedly in competition. And to a certain extent, obviously they are. They're competing. So why would competing companies meet together if not to help make legislation favorable to big business? Okay, so I think most of us can agree that, there are secret societies. It's ridiculous to assume that they are not involved in politics. They've been around since before the beginning of our country. And they were prevalent in the rich colonialist communities of America. Rich and influential colonialists, wealthy landowners, famous colonialists during their time, were the ones who signed the Declaration of Independence. They didn't just invite random people. This has always been a country for the rich. And after the battles and the wars in 1812, and when the bankers pretty much took control over America, and perhaps it was in the bigger, it was part of the bigger agenda. It was in the cards. Perhaps not, but regardless how it played out, that is an undeniable fact that the bankers reinstituted their claim to America. So to not see the connection between secret societies, the banking system, and big pharma, or big pharmaceuticals, it really takes an idiot. And it goes back to what I said in part one. There's really three groups of people. One group of people which are complete conformists who will do anything. They have vested interests with the big pharmaceutical companies, because if society looks at things the way from a conformist perspective, then they value these people who are well adjusted to society. They're well established. They make a certain amount of money. Society leaves them alone for the most part, the government, because they're doing what they want them to do, and they're saying things that the government wants them to say, and they have opinions. They're not exactly blacklisted. Then there's a group down here which they don't really know what to think about it. You know, they're kind of like confused about all this. They watch TV and, you know, guzzle beer, and they don't really look into things too much. They have some things in common with the conformists, but the conformists are kind of a little bit more in the know, typically. Okay, and a lot of these people are borderline conformists, and so they kind of drift toward the conformists. Then we have another group, which is perhaps the only hope for humanity, which is the group I'm a part of, which are non-conformists, you know, type of people that dress differently. You know, they might dress like a hippie. They might not go out of their way to dress nice, and they might, you know, they might have old faded clothes. They might kind of have long hair. Or they might dress in a kung fu outfit. They might dress with t-shirts of revolutionaries, you know, what have you. A certain percent of them are controlled opposition, who are trying to blend in and trying to control these people. And then there's a lot of honest nonconformists who just want to make the world a better place. A lot of them don't know everything. They know a little bit about something, and when they find that out, they're really obsessed on it. They fixate on it. You know, it might be the bankers they're fixating on. It might be psychiatry. It might be secret societies. A lot of times they don't connect all these things in the way that I have, because they haven't made over 3,000 videos and have over 10,000 sources and have been doing this for 6 years and dedicating hours every day to the pursuit of righteousness in the way that I have. But they see a little something wrong, you know, it might be law enforcement, whatever, and they talk about it, they protest it, and they make it part of their life. Some of these people fixate on freeing Tibet, some of them fixate on Palestine, you know. It is, and these things aren't exactly adverse to the New World Order agenda. As long as you don't talk about the entire bigger picture, and you disagree with a large group of people, and you're part of a large group of people that disagree with them, they're not truly adverse to that. But when you talk about how these things are connected, and you talk about all of them, and what the philosophies behind them are that have allowed for them, and what are the ancient religions of these people, and you start talking bad about them, and you advocate the only solution, which is surgical strikes, then you've made it easy for them to call you a terrorist, and you've also posed a direct threat to them. Because you're not at odds with another group that they're trying to put you at odds with. You're at odds with the very people behind the system. You know, even the people of the Occupy Wall Street movement, they're at odds with the banking system. They really have no problem with that. There's a lot of people that work in banking and finance, and I have people in my family who have business, masters in business. You know, there's a lot of business people. They need the bankers. You know, they're not exactly the people who are marching with the Occupy Wall Street. And it's a small group of rich people who have power and a lot of bootlickers versus perhaps a larger group of people who really don't have any power, who really are going to make a fuss and really aren't educated enough to know what to do about it in the first place. And if they were, they would be fighting a guerrilla war with the people in charge. This is why they made it such a high priority to go after Che Guevara. It's because he wasn't falling in line with the Russian-style communism of the time, the Soviet-style communism of the time. Instead, he was saying, I'm going to get to the root of the problem, and if I fall out with Russia, fine. If I fall out with Castro, fine. If I have to go in the jungles of Bolivia and carry a few eggs and a little lunch pail type of thing, fine. I'm going to go after the true root cause, which is the people behind this, and he's describing the system that they use. You know, their propaganda system, their banking system, their miners of the time. Mining was a big thing, and it still is. You know, their diamonds and so on and so forth. Though he did subscribe to an atheistic, spiritual bottom feeder philosophy, he wasn't doing so in a way that they found acceptable. The same way I prescribe to a Christian and Muslims types of philosophies, which it would have been fine with them if I did it in a way that was conducive to what they're trying to do, which I don't. Instead, I prove beyond any doubt through scripture and logic that the only way to defeat these people is a surgical guerrilla war. Thank you.